Thank you for giving me to present my piece of work in this big occasion. I'm really happy, and my title of presentation is Green Synthesized Silver Nanoparticles for the delivery of ciprofloxacin against resistance strain of Escherichia coli. So this is the outline of my presentation. So when I come to the introduction, as it's known, antimicrobial resistance has become ever-escalating global health crisis in the effective in treatment of adverse range of infections. So especially gram-negative bacteria, including E. coli, have taken a lion's share for microbial resistance, causing a plethora of infections currently. So currently, E. coli is one of the most common pathogens over the globe that cause severe infections, including urinary tract infection. And it causes substantial morbidity and mortality and major economic burden to the society in the healthcare system. So urinary tract infection had been effectively treated by ciprofloxacin for a long time. However, there are many clinical isolators which are resistant for the effect of ciprofloxacin. So there is a need of new antibacteria for the treatment of such resistance bacterial strains. So it's imperative to develop new alternative approaches that improve the efficacy of available antibiotics. So this is the significance of our study. The profound antimicrobial activity of silver nanoparticles has inspired the development of performance-enhancing nano-silver-based biomedical products, and silver nanoparticles are suitable platforms for drug delivery due to their some intrinsic features or unique features which are responsible for the delivery of different drugs. So the green synthesis of, in addition, the green synthesis of nanoparticles using plant extract is simple, accessible, environmentally burning, facile, and cost-effective, and no need for any additional surface modification to load the drug using these silver nanoparticles. Therefore, the current study was aimed to synthesize silver nanoparticles using aqueous extract of Aloe for the delivery of ciprofloxacin, thereby enhancing its efficacy against ciprofloxacin resistance Escherichia, which are responsible for the cause of various infections. So it will contribute to reducing morbidity, mortality, and economic loss related to Escherichia or resistance strain of Escherichia coli infection, provide additional evidence on utilization of plant extract-based silver nanoparticles for antibiotic delivery, and it will also widen option of potential plant for green synthesized silver nanoparticles. These are the objectives of the study. The general objective was to synthesize silver nanoparticles using Aloe extracts and evaluate the in vitro effect of ciprofloxacin loaded silver nanoparticles against ciprofloxacin resistance Escherichia coli. And these were the specific objectives that were performed to achieve the general objective. The first, we synthesize silver nanoparticles using Aloe extracts as a reducing and stabilizing. We optimize operational factors that are responsible for high yield of silver nanoparticle synthesis. We investigate the drug loading and drug encapsulating efficacy of the green synthesized silver nanoparticles. We determine the in vitro drug risk profile of ciprofloxacin loaded nanoparticles. And finally, we evaluate the in vitro efficacy of ciprofloxacin loaded silver nanoparticles against ciprofloxacin resistant Escherichia coli, as compared with standard ciprofloxacin and pure silver nanoparticles. These were the materials that were used for this study. And when we come to the method, various methods were used. The first was the collection and extraction of plant extracts that are used for capping and stabilizing for the synthesis of silver nanoparticles that were used for the loading of ciprofloxacin. So the plant were collected in sample area of Ethiopia, especially in Hargo, which is 3.1 kilometers southernmost of Desse, South Wollo, Ethiopia, and it was authenticated by Department of Pathobiology and Biodiversity Management of Addis Ababa University, Ethiopia. And the aqueous extract was extraction of the aqueous extract or the crude plant extract was done by following the method with some modification. So these are the methods. Due to the interest of time, I will not go through detail the methods. And then the preliminary screening of the phytochemicals that were supposed to be present in the plant were determined by using different chemical methods. The presence of phenols, saponin, flavonoids, alkaloids, and other plant materials were determined by using different physical-chemical parameters, because these plant phytochemicals are responsible for the stabilizing and the capping effect of the plant to synthesize the silver nanoparticles from silver salts. So there are various methods that were affecting the synthesis of the nanoparticles using silver salts and using the plant extract. So the biosynthesis of silver nanoparticles were conducted according to the method given by Singh and Kim with some slight modification, and the aqueous extract was added to solution. This is generally the methods, and those of who are interested to biosynthesize this will deliver the methods in the published articles. So these are some of the operational parameters that were affecting the biosynthesis of silver nanoparticles, which were optimized: the concentration of silver salts, volume percentage of the plant extract, temperature of the reaction, pH of the media, reaction time. These were most of the main parameters that were optimized for maximum yield production of silver nanoparticles using the green synthesis method. And so the optimization parameter was conducted by controlling one parameter at a time and varying controlling the other parameters at a time and varying the one parameter at a time. So, and then ciprofloxacin was loaded on the silver nanoparticles after the optimum and the maximum yield of silver nanoparticles was determined. We loaded ciprofloxacin on the silver nanoparticles. That was the major objective. So drug loading was done according to the published methods and with slight modification following the method written here. And the drug encapsulation efficacy and the drug loading capacity of the nanoparticles was determined using the common formulas. So then we characterized both free silver nanoparticles and the drug-loaded silver nanoparticles using different instrumental methods mentioned, like UV spectrophotometer, X-ray diffraction, and differential scanning calorimetry. And then the in vitro drug release study was conducted at various pHs using a method which was adopted from Shaker and Saban's little modification. And finally, the in vitro antimicrobial efficacy testing was conducted using this diffusion method compared with pure ciprofloxacin, pure silver nanoparticles, and silver ciprofloxacin loading nanoparticles. So when it comes to the result and identification, the first result was we were checked the presence of different phytochemicals from the plant extract, and most of the phytochemicals except the alkaloids, steroids, and terpenoids were present, which are responsible for the stabilizing or the capping and antioxidant effect of the nanoparticles, and which helped for the successful synthesis of the silver nanoparticles. Mainly the phenols and flavonoids are major responsible for the capping and stabilizing effect. And the formation of the pure silver nanoparticles was affected, as we said, by various parameters, and the yield was increased by when the concentration of silver nitrate and or the salts which was used for the synthesis of silver nanoparticles, and the reaction temperature and pH of the medium was increased. So these are the graphs that show the different parameters which was controlled and optimized to synthesize the desired silver nanoparticles in the yield. Different concentration. The first graph shows the different concentration of the silver salts that were used for the synthesis, and the second shows the percentage or the amount of silver and the plant extract that was used to synthesize the. So as you see from this graph, different concentrations was used, but the maximum yield was obtained after 16 micromolar of the silver salts, and after 10 and 5% of the the plant extract. And this is the temperature and the pH conditions that we optimized to synthesize the silver nanoparticles. So as you see from the graph, the maximum yield was obtained at 75 degrees centigrade and after 75 degrees centigrade. And similar, the pH condition that was appropriate for the synthesis of the appropriate silver nanoparticles was a pH of 12. And the time required the best silver nanoparticles was around 2 hours, because after 2 hours, the synthesis is almost less, and the yield was almost the same. And so these are the conditions that were used to synthesize the final silver particles from the optimization process. So we determined 16 millimole of silver nitrate, 20% of the extract at 75 degrees centigrade and a pH of 12, and at the reaction medium, and 2 hours are the optimal parameters used to synthesize the silver nanoparticles. As you see, these are the different parameters, and this is the final yield after optimization. This is the amount, the silver nanoparticles that we synthesize. Then we loaded the ciprofloxacin using different methods, and ciprofloxacin was successfully loaded on the synthesized nanoparticles, and the encapsulation and the loading efficacy of the nanoparticles were determined by varying different time and concentration of the silver nanoparticles. So as we see from this graph, the maximum time required to load the maximum concentration of ciprofloxacin in silver nanoparticles, and the maximum encapsulation capacity, and the concentration required with the concentration of the ciprofloxacin required to load this maximum amount was determined. So the maximum encapsulation efficacy was 60.94%, and the maximum drug loading efficacy was 40.19, which was achieved below 12 hours. So the loaded nanoparticles, to confirm the loading of the ciprofloxacin on silver nanoparticles, further analysis was done, and as we see, there is a big difference in lambda max or spectrophotometer or spectrum of silver nanoparticles and silver nanoparticle ciprofloxacin loaded ciprofloxacin. So this one confirmed as the successful loading of ciprofloxacin or silver nanoparticles, and even the infrared spectrum also confirmed the successful loading of the ciprofloxacin to the synthesized nanoparticles. As we see from this infrared spectrum, there is a variation between 4 of the spectrum: the extract, silver nanoparticles, ciprofloxacin, and ciprofloxacin, and loaded silver nanoparticles. So when you see the spectrum of the infrared spectrum of silver nanoparticles loaded with ciprofloxacin, it shows clearly that the loading of ciprofloxacin, because the spectrum of silver nanoparticles loaded ciprofloxacin is completely different with ciprofloxacin, silver nanoparticles, and the extractors, and which and the major peaks were appeared for both silver nanoparticles and ciprofloxacin in the ciprofloxacin loaded silver nanoparticles, further confirming successful loading. This one, we have also measured the size distribution and the hydrodynamic diameter of the synthesized particles and the drug-loaded ciprofloxacin nanoparticle, the silver nanoparticle. So as you see, the hydrodynamic diameter is from 98.9 nanometer class or -3 nanometer, and the polydispersibility index is acceptable. The same for yes. What? Hello?
I think that no one is asking you anything. Please go ahead.
Somebody is talking.
Yeah, I don't know. Please switch off your microphone in order to let the speaker not be stopped. Thank you.
So SEM spectra also indicated successful loading of the silver nanoparticles, and the X-ray diffraction also shows the average crystalline size of the silver nanoparticles, and the dynamic scattering calorimetric or DSC analysis of the silver nanoparticles also gives different graphs indicating the successive loading. And finally, we determined the in vitro drug release profile of the ciprofloxacin from the nanoparticles at various pHs. And as you see, the various pH range gives different drug release profile, and majorly at lower pH, especially at a pH of 1.2, there is a burst release. Almost more than 80% of the drug was released, and then the trend continues like that. But at a higher pH, like 7.4, the below 50% of the drug was released before 10 hours, and it increases in a controlled manner. So that one is the best pH for the release of the drug. And finally, we determined the antibacterial efficacy compared with ciprofloxacin, pure ciprofloxacin, pure silver nanoparticles, because both of them have an antibacterial effect, and silver nanoparticles loaded with ciprofloxacin. So as you see from their result, loading of ciprofloxacin on silver nanoparticles or conjugation of ciprofloxacin with the nanocarriers enhances the efficacy of ciprofloxacin from resistance to intermediate effects. As you see, the breaking points are if it is below greater than 26 millimeter, the drug is active, or the microbe is highly susceptible for the antibiotic. And if it is between 20 to 25, it is intermediate efficacy. And if it's less than 21 nanometer, the microbe will be resistant still. But the loading of this one, ciprofloxacin to silver nanoparticles, obviously improves the efficacy of ciprofloxacin against resistance Escherichia E. coli. So when we come to the conclusion, in this study, high crystalline silver nanoparticles with average particle size of 98.9 plus or minus 3 nanometer were successfully synthesized. Ciprofloxacin was effectively loaded on the surface of silver nanoparticles without any surface modification. The in vitro release profile of ciprofloxacin followed by a phasic pattern, and there is an immediate drug release and a continuous or sustained drug release of the product. And the effective of ciprofloxacin against a resistant Escherichia coli was enhanced through loading on silver nanoparticles. So loading of the antibiotic on these silver nanoparticles has a significant effect. It improves the efficacy of the desired antibiotics. Therefore, this study demonstrates that biosynthesis of silver nanoparticles using the plant extract or Aleocampera aqueous extract could be potential nanocarrier for ciprofloxacin delivery to improve its efficacy against this resistance E. coli. And that's all. Thank you.